Good morning, Dr. Fleck. Good morning, Ricky.
Morning, Lloyd.
You look like Nicole and not Dr. Ross.
I know, right? I was like, why is it saying that?
What's that about?
I don't even know because I got the link from Melissa, so I don't know why it went.
You may be able to change your name.
Can I?
In the upper right, maybe there's 3 dots.
Ooh, rename. I think that. Yep.
Yep.
I was like, I am not. Let me do it. Yes. Change. Okay, there I am.
There you go. That's better. Good morning, Addie.
I don't know what's up with my camera, so it's going to be on, it's going to be off,
It's
whatever.
on.
It's Friday.
Your smiling face this morning.
But Addie is Housing for New Hope summer intern,
Awesome.
working with our program effectiveness, and
Excellent.
yeah, so I asked her to join us today, and she agreed.
Thank you for letting me hop on.
Glad you're here. Dr. Ron Fleck has joined again. So we're going to start here in another minute or two. I see Melba Henry is joining us. I've been made the host for this meeting. Our coordinator, Melissa Hernandez, is busy with the Homeless Services Advisory Committee's Executive Committee is also meeting at the same time, but we're going to persevere. We are in the department's Community Development Department now, have a full team of 7, and we are covering a lot of things, and we'll keep plugging away. So it is 10:02, so let's get started. First, you should have gotten a notice when you joined that the meeting is being recorded, so is for posterity and prosperity perhaps as well. But we are I know our newest team member, Anthony Henderson, said he would like to perhaps review this session, since he and I will be working closely on this year's collaborative application for the continuum of care funding. So let's do a quick round of introductions. My name is Lloyd Schmeidler. I am working in the city's Community Development Department and your host and facilitator for these meetings, working to develop the strongest collaborative application we can for HUD funding. I'm going to just call people out. My colleague in the office, Melba Henry, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Melba Henry. I am, of course, Lloyd's colleague. I'm a member of the Home Assistant team, and I'll be working alongside Lloyd on this effort.
Very good. Nicole Lamb.
Hi, I'm Nicole Lamb. I am the program director for Coordinated Entry Program for Durham County.
Very good. Thank you. Addie.
Hi, I'm Addie Seschel. I am an intern with Housing for New Hope. I'm getting my master's in public policy at Duke right now. And over the summer, I'm working with Housing for New Hope mostly to develop a feedback loop between clients and staff. So just on here to learn, and I appreciate you all letting me on.
Very good. Thank you, Eddie. Glad you could join us. Ricky.
Hello, friends. I'm Ricky Gardner with Housing for New Hope. I serve as their compliance manager, and for like the last 7 years have been all things applications. So I'm on the call.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Ricky. Cindy Thompson.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not sure why my name said Ron Flack to start. That is my boss, and he is not here. I think maybe because I joined from his calendar could be why. So I changed it. But in the event, I am the director of operations for Volunteers of America. So I work alongside Nicole Lamb.
Very good. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate everybody being with us. I am going to attempt to share my screen if I can find where I do that. Here we go. It's the green button. I want to do some things by way of introductions. Thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. My agenda for this morning, beyond welcome and introductions, is kind of review our 2022 collaborative application scores. Perhaps provide some introduction to what the collaborative application is all about for those who may need it. We'll note some changes between how HUD scored the 2022 collaborative application and its scoring for 2023. And we'll do perhaps an overall overview of the collaborative application, and then begin to dive deeper into the collaborative application, beginning at the beginning, section 1B. So let me see if I can share. Can you see this table? 2022 annual CoC NOFO debriefing.
Yes.
Okay. The collaborative application, so basically, by way of introduction again, for those of you who may be somewhat new to the continuum of care, notice of funding opportunity, or the NOFO, and HUD scoring of it. There's basically 3 parts to a community's application for continuum of care funding. Those of you who may have participated in the webinar, the How to Apply webinar on Monday, maybe heard that Durham is going to be eligible, to apply for about $2.2 million in this year's annual continuum of care competition. It is a competition with other communities across the country. There's about 400 CoCs, ranging from large CoCs like Los Angeles or New York City that can apply for, I don't know, $50 to $60 million or more of CoC funds, to smaller CoCs like Durham, like Orange County CoCs that apply for perhaps a few $100,000. Durham's the score that we get on the collaborative application, which is one important part of the 3-part application, helps determine how much funding we get. There's 3 parts to a community or a CoC application. There is the collaborative application, which kind of tells HUD what community is doing on, looks like, let's see, Jeffrey is joining us. Welcome, Jeffrey. We're just getting started, and Jeffrey Rawlings has joined. He's also a newer staff member here in Community Development Department, primarily going to started working with our coordinated entry system, working with Nicole and others to ensure that we have a well-functioning coordinated entry system for households experiencing a housing crisis in Durham. So the collaborative application helps tells HUD what we're doing in a number of different ways that we'll review. The project applications tell HUD which projects we want, we recommend HUD fund. And then the priority listing tells HUD which projects we want funded. And then the project applications are actually the applications of individual projects that are completed by people like Ricky and Jennifer Smith, who just joined the call. Jennifer is involved with development work at Urban Ministries of Durham. And Jennifer, I think you've been primarily responsible for writing Urban Ministries application for funding for the Fresh Start project. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Very good. Well, welcome to joining us. So this table on your screen shows how Durham scored in the 2022 collaborative application. Shows areas of strength, and these are basically the scoring categories are basically sections of the collaborative application that HUD delineates in the NOFO or described in the NOFO, and then in the collaborative application it is how we complete the various sections. You can see that perhaps our three weakest areas are coordination with housing and healthcare, where we didn't receive any of the 14 points that were available. System performance is a mixed bag. We lost significant points for declines in our inventory, our bed count for rapid rehousing in particular. There's other things that go into that we'll get into probably in subsequent sessions. And then coordination and engagement 1C and 1D, where we didn't score nearly as well last year as we had done in previous years. Had how HUD scores that, I think changes from year to year, so it's really hard to consider how we might do. In terms of HMIS implementation, we lost 2 points, I think primarily because HUD scores us on what percentage of our housing inventory is using our homeless management information system, and a category of housing that is
power on, ready for connection.
okay.
Bluetooth connected.
Not sure who is doing that, but you may want to mute yourself if you're not intending to talk. And if you do have questions along the way, I can't necessarily at this point see who may have questions. And if you do have questions about any of this, feel free to say, Lloyd, you got a question, and we'll take it. I was sharing about HMS implementation, a housing category that HUD looks at in terms of what percentage of the beds are included in the HMIS or being tracked in HMIS, is a newer housing category simply called other permanent housing that is dedicated for use or occupancy by homeless people or formerly homeless people. And included in that are the emergency housing vouchers that Durham received through the CARES Act, I believe, as well as the housing choice vouchers that are managed by Durham Housing Authority. And to get full credit, at least 85% of those beds should be tracked in the HMIS, and we have very limited ability to encourage and or require, we really cannot require the housing authority to track those beds using the HMIS. So that's where we lost a couple points there. Pit count, I think, is largely based on how we implement the count, and I think especially how the count, overall count varies from year to year. I think we get full credit if it goes down, we get less credit when it goes up. Any questions about last year's debriefing? All right. What I want to point out is that
Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
Jeffrey, I think you might want to mute your mic.
I'm
We
sorry
keep-
about that. I was trying to change it, and it took me over to unmute. I'm sorry.
No worries. We're all friends here. In terms of the 2023 scoring, couple of changes. HUD, let's see. 1E here, project capacity review and ranking. Last year was worth 30 points, as it says in the second column. This year, it's only going to be 27 points. Okay, and HUD is taking those 3 points and adding 2 of them to collaboration and 1B and 1C and 1D. Overall, coordinate collaboration last year was worth 83 points. I think that's the sum of 1B, 1C, and 1D. So 5, 29, and 49, I think, adds up to the 83 under general category of collaboration. HUD is increasing that to 85 points in the 2023 competition. And so that's increasing by 2. And the other point that's being taken away from 1E is being added to system performance, an area where we did not score particularly well last year, is going to increase to 60 points. Okay, so how HUD scores the collaborative application, even though the total CoC application will remain at 200 points, the distribution between the various categories is going to, categories I think are largely going to be the same, but the distribution will be somewhat different. In terms of coordination with housing and healthcare, those organizations that may be considering a new project application, whether it's for a completely new project or for an expansion, you will note on the, may have noted already on the scorecard for new CoC project applications that we are asking for information and commitments to have housing subsidies from other funds beyond CoC, as well as partnerships with healthcare organizations included as part of those applications. And that is simply an effort to see if we in the 2023 competition can get some of these 14 points so that we can increase our funding.
Can I ask a question, Lloyd?
Yes.
Okay, so like obviously the area that we really need to focus on is that coordination between housing and healthcare. And I was thinking recently about our HSAC structure. And I believe on our HSAC, like Duke is required to have a seat on HSAC. Is that correct?
That's correct, and they do.
Okay, so if Duke, and I'm not sure whether it's the university or their healthcare system or some combination of the two, would we be able to use, that part of our HSAC structure that they participate, but then like also like no tea, no shade. I don't know how involved Duke really is in our homeless service system.
Well, Eliza Matthew is the current representative of Duke on the HSAC. I think in terms of these 14 points, as well as new project applications, organizations really need to review the information in the NOFO. There's very clear language that to get any of these points, we need written commitments from organizations. Last year, I think on some of the applications for expansion or new projects, there was language saying, yeah, we do have commitments, or we will get commitments from housing and health organizations, but we didn't get any of those 14 points because we didn't have any documentation of those commitments. If we did, we had missed them. So I think it's certainly I think you raise a good point, Ricky, and that it may be worth a conversation with Eliza to see if between now and if not August 18th, at least now, and when we have to submit to HUD by the September 28th deadline, we can get some written commitments regarding either commitments for housing subsidies or at least commitments of healthcare support for projects. I mean, through the Duke system or through Lincoln Community Health Center to get those kind of commitments that would help us get some of those funds. Certainly the Zero would like to get some of those 14 points, but that is important, but 14 is 7% of the overall 200 points that are available. So we also need to concentrate on some of the other areas of weakness on our application. Is that helpful?
Yeah, of course. I think I like where you're going about, a conversation with Eliza would be great to see what kind of commitment Duke might be willing to go on record making. I just think it's interesting that they're required to participate on HSAC and have a seat, but we don't have anything in writing where they actually support our homeless system.
Right.
Not trying to make trouble, just an observation.
Yeah, I hear you, and that's I think your point is well taken. Okay, let me also share this screen, which shows that in comparison to other CoCs, Durham scored below the median. A couple years ago, we were above the median. Again, the scoring varies from year to year. We only got 84% of the median, and in reference to the weighted mean, HUD describes the weighted mean as an adjustment that it makes to scores of the CoCs based on, I think, the size, the housing inventory, the amount of funding, perhaps, that the CoCs are getting. And it says basically, if you scored above the weighted mean, you're more likely to get increased funding. If you score below the weighted mean, you're more likely to lose funding. Would also point out, as was mentioned in the webinar on Monday, that this year the tier 1 funding is only 93% of the annual renewal demand. Last year it was 95%. So if we do not score at or above the weighted mean, we are more likely to lose up to 7% of our annual renewal demand. So that could have a negative impact on one or the other of the projects that are scored, that are ranked at the bottom of tier 1 and perhaps a portion of it in tier 2. So that's all I want to say about that at this point. Any questions about any of this information? So this is just basically to say that how well we present the good work that is being done in Durham on our collaborative application impacts the total amount of funding that Durham receives in this competition, again, in which we're eligible to apply for up to 2.2 million between not only the annual renewal demand for our renewing projects, but we're estimating about 140,000 in CoC bonus funds and domestic violence bonus of $206,000 or more. All right.
I actually have a quick question just to make sure I'm.
Go ahead, Eddie. Yep.
Thanks. Just to make sure I'm understanding it. So if with something like pit count, it just is a little confusing to me. So if we were to report that we had more homeless people than in previous years, we would lose funding for services to provide to homeless people. That's how.
Well, that's a good lead into an actual review of the collaborative application, and let me see if I can find the one I want. I'm going to close that, and somebody's in the waiting room. Okay, somebody else with Dr. Flack perhaps is actually planning to join us. All right. So are you seeing coordination and engagement, inclusive structure and participation?
Yes.
Yes.
It's very small though, Lloyd.
All right, well, let's, how's that? Better?
Yeah,
Definitely
good.
better.
Thank
All
you.
right. Is everybody on that wants to be on? Let me see, I did, maybe there were some changes at Volunteers of America. Okay.
What do you mean by changes?
Well, there were a couple people, I got a message or saw a note that
Oh, okay, yeah.
Ron.
Oh, I see it, but they're all listed under our boss's names.
Yeah, right. All right, so I want to try to answer Addie's question by coming down to, if I can, the section of the point in time or the section of the collaborative application that references system performance and specifically point in time counts. Right now, this is a 37-page document. It will expand in length as we add information to it. Okay, here's question 2A, moves into the homeless management information system. Here again, it's I referenced losing points on the HMIS for other permanent housing beds that are not included in our HMIS. Longitudinal system analysis, some of you are familiar with this. Here's the section on the point in time count. So we input when we had the count, as well as the data and how we, conducted the count. HUD also evaluates how we conducted the count, and we can lose points. We don't do as good a job as we might you know, for how we conducted the count. Some of this I think is going back and forth. Okay, I'm coming back to that. So the methodology is evaluated, and then I think maybe I need to go to the NOFO itself to get the points that HUD is looking at in terms of the points that we're given for point in time count. So it concerns methodology as well as the overall count. And you know, I think there are, you know, people who've been participating with the continuum of care for some time will note that at every ASEC meeting we talk about the overall goals, right, of reducing homelessness among veterans, among chronically homeless people, and overall reducing it. So HUD wants us to continue to work on that, and the reality is that there's few communities across the country that are actually reducing homelessness right now. And I saw recently something from the homelessness information to nonprofit based in Chicago that kind of looks at what's going on with homelessness across the country, and it's kind of challenging HUD in some ways to make some significant changes to how it operates the CoC program. But they pointed out significant increases in unsheltered homelessness in particularly in on the West Coast. Los Angeles, I think their unsheltered count is in the tens of thousands of people, sadly. But anyway.
Lloyd, can I add something?
Yes.
Like to Addie's point, it does seem kind of messed up that if you report on your pit that you encountered more or your community is seeing an increase in homelessness, that you would receive like a deduction in points, like messed up, right? And taking that a little bit further, it's, you know, each year that our CoC conducts the pit count, like it gets a little bit more refined, right? Like we change our strategies to, you know, make sure to the best of our community's ability that we truly are counting everyone. So in these changes that we make to make sure our pit count is as inclusive as possible to represent you know, the state of homelessness, you know, one night in our community, you think it would go up, right? And so it's almost like, is there a way to narratize that? To say, hey, yes, our pit count is increasing because we have made, you know, strategic changes in the way our community, our CoC operates the pit count to make sure that we are counting everyone. That's one thing. I have another comment too. You know I do, Lloyd.
Well, on that point, can you still see 2B-4 pit count methodology change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, this is where we hopefully, you know, we'll describe the changes we made between 2022 and 2023, and hopefully, you know, gain a point or half a point for particularly how we change the unsheltered pit count implementation in 2023. And I'll double check between now and our next session as to we could go to the NOFO and look specifically at points for the pit count and confirm how HUD is evaluating pit count. And it may be that they're solely looking at methodology and not the total count, but we'll confirm that for our next meeting. And hopefully, Addie, you can join us next time as well.
I mean, like her internship ends next week.
Right, so I'm gonna have to get you a question, I'll have to get you an answer for that.
I sent it to my Duke email, so I can be the Duke representative.
Okay, well, and Ricky has access to the NOFO. If you don't, you can easily get access. So it is in the NOFO itself as to how HUD is evaluating hit count. But we'll get you some information about that. All right. Any?
I had another comment.
Yes.
You know, it's always a package deal with me, right?
Absolutely.
So
and we appreciate that.
So my other comment was on the pit hick, where you said that last year we lost points because our housing inventory decreased, like the number of rapid rehousing beds that we had decreased. And I'm sure for this year's hick, it's the same thing, right? And so could we add to the narrative of that section, like the reason why rapid rehousing beds decrease is because we were serving rapid rehousing households longer. So there wasn't the turnaround that our CoC historically has seen, where, you know, maybe rapid rehousing households are served for 6 months or a year, whatever. Like no, rapid rehousing was serving people for like 18 months, 24 months, like, and this is all, you know, due to the pandemic. I mean, not to say that we can blame the coronavirus for everything, but as much as we can, let's blame it. And, you know, let HUD know that it's not that we're not trying to use rapid rehousing beds, is that people in those programs were staying in them longer. And then we can talk about, you know, FMR if we want to rile them up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Lord, if I could interject with you here, I think I see your point, Ricky, and I think we're going to have to be very detailed in the narrative, because looking at the data, I'm compiling the CE evaluation. The people that you served this past year, that we served here in Durham, were of a higher chronicity, so they stayed longer. So I think we're going to need to be very detailed in our region, and I think that's the plan. Is to be very detailed in explaining that the hit count was affected by the fact that we had higher barrier people that were staying for much longer. Therefore, we were unable to service as many people. And I can say from past experience in the CoC where I came from, that when our pit count increased, we were extremely detailed. I mean, down to the agency level, about why our pit count increased, about the fact that we were more aggressive in our outreach, that we sent out teams into places that we were unaware of before, that we connected with the police, and that the police also informed us of places, that we talked with churches. We were extremely detailed, and we gained funding, even though our number increased. So I think that what the goal is, and Lloyd, correct me if I'm wrong, is to be extremely detailed so that we can try and capture everything. Because maybe we didn't capture everything last year, but being more detailed this year should affect that.
Yeah, I mean, we do work to, you know, part of the reason we have these sessions obviously is to make sure we're capturing all of the detail that we can and including it in the HMIS, or excuse me, in the collaborative application. And I appreciate, you know, Jeffrey's involvement with this, as well as Anthony, our new staff member who comes with some great experience from the Miami CoC, which is certainly a much larger metropolitan community that's doing some good things as well in its efforts to address homelessness. So we will, you know, it's a collaboration, right? I've been taking the lead on it since at least 2010 in terms of overall writing it, but I continue to really rely on input from CoC members, which is why I'm delighted to have you all on the call this morning, and as well as now as our team here at Community Development is rounded out and fully staffed. We're going to be relying as well on Jeffrey and Anthony and others on the team to help us make sure that we have the best collaborative application that we can. Okay. Any other comments anybody wants to make at this point? I see a couple of things in the chat. Let me see. All right, so the Ricky Gardner fan club. Not sure what that is, but we're glad I'm a member of that fan club as well. All right.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome.
So am I.
All right, so shout outs to the Ricky Gardner fan club. Membership, I think, in that fan club is free, as far as I know. So to take it from the beginning, first real page. I mean, there's a introductory page which I did not download, but we're identified as the NC 502 Durham City and County CoC, and the City of Durham is collaborative application, which is what the CA stands for, and the North Carolina Coalition on Homelessness is our HMIS lead agency. This section gets into how these various organizations in our community participate in our CoC. And so there's three basic columns, whether these organizations in the community participate in CoC meetings, whether they vote, including electing CoC board members. Durham does not, in our governance charter, really have, I don't think, any opportunities for CoC members to actually elect CoC board members. I don't know, certainly the HSAC and the CoC could make some changes to the structure. I don't know that that's a priority. We're scoring pretty well in terms of our inclusive structure. At various times we have talked about reducing the number of people serving on the Homeless Services Advisory Committee. There's pros and cons to that. Right now, I tend to think that it's probably better to have a larger board and than it is to maybe have a smaller board that's not as inclusive, but that's really up to the HSAC and the CoC as a whole. And then the last column is how these organizations participated in the coordinated entry system, or whether they did at all. Generally, we are pretty liberal in saying yes, yes, and yes to each of these areas. For example, under row 1, affordable housing developers, we consider Housing for New Hope an affordable housing developer, and so we say yes that they vote across the board. The city itself is an entitlement jurisdiction, so we say yes for that. Last year we said no for disability advocates. We struggled to identify disability advocates. I did some a quick Google search yesterday, and I think we can say yes for this row 3, because people like Judith Rowanowski, a local attorney, certainly well connected to the CoC, and people like Sharita McCullers could be considered a disability advocate as well, even if she's not a formal representative. Disability service organizations. I think last year we said yes, at least in some of these. So largely we're saying yes to a lot of these. We don't believe that there's any Indian tribes or tribally designated housing entities. So we, for number 8, say non-existent, but we'll be reviewing that. You can see here that it's a pretty inclusive list. Again, this is kind of reviewing where we are. I think HUD has maybe even added some kind of categories of organizations to this list over the last few years, but haven't filled any of this out as yet. Ricky, you may know that I believe eSnaps is open for work on project applications. I went online yesterday and discovered that it's open for the collaborative application, so I assume that it's also open for project applications, which is a key part of certainly a local project application process.
Yeah, I was in there. I haven't gone in this week. That's my disclaimer. But last week I went in there and the project application had not dropped.
Right. But I think
I can check later on today to see if it did.
Yeah, I believe it dropped yesterday, so or the day before. So, any comments or questions about this this table? Again, we'll be looking at potentially making sure that we have good coverage across these various organizations. We're grateful to have the LGBTQ Center of Durham as a CoC recipient of the CoC fund. We want to continue to try to work with them to increase their capacity and really get their rapid rehousing project that was first funded in 2021 solidly established and solidly serving people from that community that may need housing assistance. Moving on, then the open invitation for new members. We have 2,500 characters. I think last year or the year before had increased the character limits from 2,000 to 2,500 as a result of lobbying by CoCs across the nation. Give us a few more characters to describe these things, and as we'll begin filling this in over the next few weeks, and then inviting people on this call in particular to help us fill in the gaps. All right, so one area I was happy to hear Addie introduced as someone who's working with Housing for New Hope to bring people with lived experience more effectively into the role of consulting with the organization. That is something that we value not only at the organizational level, the CoC membership level, organizationally, but also within the CoC, and we need to continue to look at how we do that as well. I'm kind of just scrolling through the collaborative application just to give everybody on the call today a sense for what HUD is asking about, and it's pretty all-inclusive. We need to perhaps look a bit more deeply how we coordinate with the planning or operations of projects. On this table, gratefully, Melba is on the call, and Melba Henry does work with the entitlement funding that the city receives for housing opportunities for persons with AIDS. And we can, I don't know if there's opportunities to highlight that, but we do value that work and its contributions to our CoC. Consultation with ESD program recipients. We do that through the work of the HSAC and the policy and planning and the performance management committee as well, in terms of how we are planning and allocating ESD program funds, both at the entitlement level as well as at the state ESG funds. So we'll be talking about that. This is an area, some of these trainings, I think we've done some training this year. We're asking organizations that are applying for new project funding. In Zoom grants, there's a question or a cover letter that needs to be submitted with the project application from eSNAPS and other supporting documentation that confirms that the organization either participated in the trainings that Philip Miller with the City's Human Relations Commission offered earlier this spring, or have watched those videos related to fair housing and VAWA implementation, et cetera. And I think a part of that also was this issue of making sure that families are not separated when they're served by our recipient organizations. So lots of things. Our partnership with Durham Public Schools is described in 1C4A, an area where we, informing families about their eligibility for educational services. We'll be relying on TPS as well as our coordinated entry partners at social services, as well as those of you at Volunteers of America involved with coordinated entry to make sure we're accurately describing what we're doing in this area. We have significant numbers of families experiencing homelessness that are seeking support from our homeless system. So that's an important area as well.
Lloyd, can those on the call receive a copy of the document you're showing us?
Sure. I'll let me get let's see, Melba, could I ask you to write down a list of the participants on this call, and would you be willing to do that for me?
I've got it.
All right, and I'll make sure everybody on the call gets a copy of this kind of black doc. It's blank except again for our the very first page, because I just downloaded it this morning, but it does show really what the collaborative application is. And for much of this, I'll be starting to complete it by going back to what we said last year for applicable questions and copying and pasting what we said last year into this year, and then looking to revise it, looking to get more information from community partners like yourselves to again strengthen this year's application so that we can score better in this year's competition and potentially get an additional project or two funded. Anti-discrimination is a big part of it. Several questions here. We are scored heavily on our partnership with the Durham Housing Authority as our primary public housing agency, and so we do look at that. HUD generally scores as well because of the things going on with our partnership with the Housing Authority. Ricky and others may know that we have been encouraging particularly permanent supportive housing projects funded by the CoC to work with people to voluntarily move on to perhaps other housing subsidies, housing choice vouchers, for example, or emergency housing vouchers, or just perhaps to market rate housing if they've been stable in permanent supportive housing for some years and are willing to voluntarily give up their their permanent supportive housing slot to move towards increased independence if they no longer need the supportive services that the permanent supportive housing project is providing to them. So there's a section about that. Public housing administered programs. So with their indicate if your unit includes, if your CoC includes units in your coordinated entry process. This is a question that Jeffrey and Nicole and Mabette will help us answer. In terms of the permanent housing that's available for people coming out of our homeless system. Joint applications for funding, et cetera, et cetera. List of POJs with active MOUs. I think we do have one with at least last year. We need to make sure it's still current for this year. Coordination and engagement continued. Discharge planning coordination. We have said yes about these. We need to make sure that that's still current, and I believe that these systems are not discharging people directly into homelessness, but we need to make sure that that's the case, right? And then Housing First, we have scored well with Housing First. Scored, I think last year we got 21 out of 21 points, and I think we'll continue to score well in this area. We'll be highlighting the cross CoC evaluation document that and work that we did under this section, which I think will score well with HUD this year. Street outreach is also looked at, and how well we're providing street outreach across 100% of the CoC's geographic area. I think, we continue to be concerned that our street outreach projects are serving all of Durham County, which is the entire CoC geographic area, not just the city of Durham. So we need to make sure that that's indeed the case. And we'll be looking to you, Ricky, and Shantae and Rebecca probably to help us make sure that our answer to this question is accurate and up to date. Strategies to prevent criminalization of homelessness. I think Durham's doing pretty well to ensure homelessness is not criminalized. We're not aware that there are any policies on the books in Durham that are criminalizing homelessness. But we can, I don't know. Let me see.
Do we talk about the HEART team and how maybe that started, as a pilot in a very focalized area, and then, seeing the results, of that team, working in tandem with law enforcement, our community decided, voted to expand HEART's coverage.
I think there may be opportunities in several sections to highlight HEART as a community safety response that tries to move away from ensuring homelessness is not criminalized. We do have 500 characters in under number 5 here to perhaps describe HEART of it further as well. So thanks for highlighting that. Yeah, I think that's an important strategy for us to highlight in our application. You see here that total number of beds available, rapid rehousing beds. Need to look at I'm not sure what HUD wants in the longitudinal HMIS data box. I know under 2022 we list the number of beds reported on our housing inventory count for 2022 and then 2023. I believe it's going to drop from like 182 in 2022 to like 92 in 2023. So again, we're anticipating that we're going to lose points, but hopefully that number is going to go back up in 2024 and in 6 subsequent years. Mainstream benefits, we did have a training with DSS on these areas. So we can be able to say yes for that, and that should help get us an extra point or two. Training needs to be, we do, I think, a good job in our responses to addressing each of the bullets. HUD in the 2,500 characters wants you to, wants COCs to, say to point 1, this is what we're doing, to point 2, this is what we're doing, point 3, etc. So COCs that just provide a response without referencing the particular sections that HUD is asking about lose points as well. So, but I think we do well on that. Then coordinated entry, is it covering 100% of our geographic area, Jeffrey? I think it is, but again, we need to describe
Yes, sir.
what we're doing. We need to describe our assessment process again. Nicole and Odette and Jeffrey, and how we're using feedback from our projects and households.
Now I have a question, Lloyd. So
Yes, ma'am.
I know that with the COC, all these meetings, we have sessions. So in each session, are we going to go kind of over and fill out the application, or do you need us to fill out the application and kind of send it and collaborate with it?
I think at this point, we will be starting with what we inputted last year, then reviewing it with Jeffrey, and Jeffrey will review it with in the meetings that he has with you and other community partners, either apart from the by name list meetings or perhaps in the by name list meetings, and then we'll be taking input from Jeffrey and inputting it into here, revisions. And so not everything, we only have 4 more sessions after today. So not everything of the work is going to be done in these sessions, but there'll be, but I want to try to make our community partners aware again of everything that we're going to be talking about and working with our community partners to address. Did that address your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Try to make sure.
I will be in contact,
Yes, indeed.
Nicole.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jeff.
Program participant
problem.
guided approaches, right? 1D9A. Does it reach people who are least likely to apply for homeless assistance? And what are we doing to make sure that the entire community knows about entry point? I mean, I'm still getting calls from people. I think we still got some work to do to make sure that the entire community knows about Entry Point Durham, even though it's a part of, the Department of Social Services is closely connected and involved with it. What are we doing to reduce burdens on people using coordinated entry, so et cetera? Very good questions, right? Program participants about rights and remedies. A lot of work, and Jeffrey, I'm not even sure I forwarded these questions to you yesterday. I may not have, because I didn't have a lot of time, but so advancing racial equity is another big issue. I looked at some shared with the team yesterday or the day before, some information from the from HUD regarding returns to homelessness, and there don't seem to be significant racial disparities in returns to homelessness. What we did discover in the data is that when people leave to a positive housing destination, often a permanent housing destination, returns to homelessness are significantly less. That's probably not surprisingly, but it's 3 or 4% of households that have an exit destination of a positive housing destination return to homelessness, versus about 25% of people who exit the system to a temporary housing destination, and 30% or more of the people that exit to an unknown housing destination actually return to homelessness, according to the data. So, so the more we can get our overall systems, our homeless housing systems, our emergency shelters, our coordinated entry system with homeless diversion, et cetera, to help people identify permanent housing destinations, the more likely it is that that housing is going to stick and they're not going to return to homelessness. Strategies to address racial disparities. Okay, long list here, right, about what we're doing to reduce disparities. Strategies to address known disparities, tracking progress, preventing disparities, etc. Lived experience, again, I think this is probably an area where we've got a lot more work to do as a CoC to get perhaps some kind of advisory committee established to specifically of people with lived experience. Employment opportunities, it's one of the things that we're asking new projects about as well. Some of the questions on the new project application within Zoom grants are relative to helping us answer these questions and make progress. I think this is
Lloyd, quick question. What day did you say this application is due?
it is due to HUD September 28th.
Okay.
So 2 months from today, what is that? 62 days.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yep. So we do well on project capacity review and ranking. Made progress in that. Local competition deadline needs to be attached. We posted that again yesterday with the local competition deadline of August 18th, and we're continuing to get that out. So the ranking process, et cetera. Some of you, Ricky and others, may be more familiar with this. The project forms, we need to attach the new project form as well as the renewal project scorecard that we use. HUD wants to see that, and we describe it here, et cetera, et cetera. So severe barriers. And one of the things we've talked about with the Performance Management Committee and Ricky and others is, how should we score projects on how they address severe barriers to housing, and how we consider projects welcoming and admitting people into their project space when they have severe barriers to housing. Racial equity is also looked at. So a pretty thorough, collaborative application, right? HUD's asking about a lot of things going on within the CoC. A lot of it just concerns, this section kind of concerns how we post information again. That was all section 1, believe it or not. The other sections, we're already on 26 of 37 pages, so not as much narrative in these latter sections. This is largely information from the housing inventory count that we will input. And HUD, we looked at the point in time count earlier. I'll get information back to you, Addie and Ricky in particular, about how HUD scores point in time count numbers, reduction in the number of first time homeless. This gets into HUD's system performance measures and how we're doing on those. And our strategies, HUD not only looks at our what we're doing in terms of our numbers on these system performance measures, but what we're doing to do better in these various system performance measures. Here's a section on leveraging housing resources and leveraging healthcare resources. Again, the new project application has specific questions on it about whether the projects are using housing subsidies, which are not funded through the CoC or ESG programs, and whether we're using healthcare resources. So, Ricky, we can reach out to Eliza, to Rita, and others to see if we can get Duke and or Lincoln and others to commit resources for new projects or existing projects for that matter. Don't know that we'll have any projects applying for acquisition, rehab, or new construction. Not aware at this point that we do. And then serving persons defined by other applicants. DV bonus, hopefully we will have a DV bonus project application and don't know yet what that's going to be, but HUD wants to know about it. And in previous years, when we said yes, there was a whole new section of 5 or 6 or 10 questions related to the DB bonus. So if we say yes, we'll have more information to add. So that's overview of what is asked about in the collaborative application. Any questions, comments?
I kind of have a question.
Yes, Debbie.
So I feel like, is it fair to say that we would receive better scores for things that we've been implementing, or is it also worthwhile to say this is an idea that we have and that we are planning on working on in the next year?
I think it's fair to say that HUD evaluates us on what we have been doing. What we have done, I think HUD is less impressed by saying we will do it, right? But so I mean, we could look at it. So I mean, I'm just looking at 1B2 now, the open invitation for new members. The descriptions in the field, the question says, describe in the field below how your CoC communicated a transparent invitation process, ensured effective communications and access, and invited organizations. So all of those verbs are in the past tense, right? They're not in the future tense. So I'd want to know what we've done more than what we plan to do. Not to say, as we have as we have opportunities to describe what we're planning to do, we can certainly include that, but it's focusing on what have we done, what are we doing. So good question though. Thanks for that insight.
Thank you.
You're so muted, so. Particularly from those of you who have been involved in these processes previously, anything you learned this morning about the collaborative application that was significant for you that we should highlight?
When it says 2,500 characters, is that per response or is that total for that section?
That's the total for that section, for that question,
Ouch. Okay,
right,
so as concise as possible for each one.
right, so
That's
there's
the,
a,
okay.
right, there's a text box, and the text box doesn't let you put in more than 2,500 characters. For
each question.
whether the question has 4 kind of subsections or 2 subsections. It's 2,500 characters, 2,500 characters. I've become pretty adept, I think, over the last 10, 12 years at massaging responses to meet the character limit. What I've learned is that we focus on subjects and verbs and not adjectives and adverbs. You know, to describe a project implementing something, for example, to say, you know, Housing for New Hope is implementing an innovative project. Innovative is what, about 10 to 12 characters? And better to just say Housing for New Hope is implementing a project and save our 10 characters, you know, when we reached our character limit.
So we can't say a very, very, very innovative project. We're not going to be able to do that.
Right. Right. You know, so describe the substance, right? Rather than saying,
Yeah.
if we have character, you know, if we haven't matched things out, describe more fully what the innovation is, right?
So, oh, I'm sorry, Jeffrey, were you gonna say something?
No, just agreeing.
So with the collaborative application, does HUD release a guide like for they do?
They do. Yep.
Because I find, this is just my opinion, do with it what you want, that like HUD's guides for like new applications or renewal applications is like teaching the test, like
Yes.
answer the
Yes.
questions they
Yes.
have in the thing,
Yes.
and you're good.
Yes. Yes, and one new part in the NOFO, if you caught it, those of you who have read the NOFO or know this funding opportunity, is that there is a specific paragraph in which HUD says it will give us our scores on all of the questions if we ask for them. And this is something that CoC leads across the country in debriefing sessions and communication sessions with HUD have been asking for many years, and so we'll be asking for that. Won't help us necessarily on this year, but it should help us in preparation for coming years. But yeah, HUD does release a detailed guide for completing the collaborative application in the same way it offers a detailed guide for completing the project application. And those are forthcoming. I think I saw something that they may get them out by the end of July. I'm not sure they're going to be able to meet that deadline, but hopefully they will. I think I've stopped sharing my screen, so I don't have anything else to share this morning, but really appreciate everybody's participation this morning, and hopefully you'll plan to participate in all of the 4 upcoming sessions. There'll be probably a similar format, except we'll probably, hopefully next time, have some content actually in the collaborative application for us to review and get your input on, and feel free to invite others to participate in these sessions, as they are very important for me as the lead writer on this collaborative application, as well as for us as a department in the CoC lead agency, to help us get a strong application put together, and keep our fingers crossed that maybe we'll be above the weighted mean, and actually, hopefully, at least get all of our annual renewal demand funded, if not a little more than that. Okay. Thanks again for participating this morning. Appreciate everybody's involvement. Enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend, and stay cool, stay out of the summer heat as much as you can, and drink plenty of fluids.
Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate it.
Appreciate everybody's good work. Thanks so much. Bye-bye for now.